guys, you guys saw this video that I posted. It went viral because I guess a lot of people are surprised that this is the truth. Because just a few weeks ago, I think a little bit over 2 weeks ago, we had John Bolton admit to Jake Tapper that the U.S. orchestrates coups and he was a part of it and that it requires a very smart person. So Donald Trump couldn't have possibly orchestrated a coup on January 6th because it requires a smart person. And so he's so dumb that he couldn't have done it. That was his reasoning, right? We know that January 6th was an FBI psyop, and we know this because we were there and we said it from the start. And of course, now the FBI admitted that that was essentially it. And so now we're here, and there was Laura Ingraham has her little show, and Laura Ingraham had on ex-CIA director, and he started laughing. They had a couple laughs. They were laughing about the fact that the United States meddles in elections. Now, she asked him several times, precisely, has the U.S. done this? And he admitted it, but they were laughing about it. And I think this is surprising to people, because it's one thing to say, oh, we have CIA documents and we read them. And then you're like, okay, the United States has been sanctioning, blocking Cuba, tried to assassinate Hugo Chavez via poison, try to assassinate Fidel Castro like so many times, has created fake chemical attacks in Syria, this Russiagate, everything, right? And you know that happens because you read it and you see the investigative journalism and then the WikiLeaks cables, and you see everything that's happening. There's a whole other thing to see these people in human form, because I don't know if they are human. They might have some other part. I'm going real like Steve Pasta Alex shows here, but it's just like the level of
it's been you lately.
It hasn't. Maybe Moscow's changing me. Maybe it's the water. The level of reptilian psychopathy that is required to laugh about murdering people, murdering millions of people is just, I think for a lot of people, for most people, I think in the world, have this thing in them where it's like, this just feels so wrong. Like it just really makes you uncomfortable. And I think that's why that video resonated with so many people.
This clip we're about to play is about 4 years old, by the way. A lot of people don't even realize how old this is, but I mean, and a lot of people don't follow, Laura Ingraham, especially people on the not so Republican side of the aisle who don't watch Fox on a regular basis. But this is something we've talked about for quite some time. The normalization of regime change, of policing the world. I mean, everything he says over here too, as well, is all he has to do is throw out the C word, fam, communism. And if it's communism, we're allowed to do whatever we want against all our agreements, everything whatsoever. It's just ridiculous. I mean, it doesn't surprise me that Bolton's coming out now with that language. The only difference is he said it on a different network. But this is what these people have been saying behind closed doors all the time. It's not even a secret. All you have to do is follow the money. All you have to do is follow these groups like the NED, the OAS, and you can see where their funding comes from, what the objectives are of these other players behind the scenes. And this is in the normalization of regime change right here.
Right. And we're going to play in just 1 second. And Pasta, I'm going to ask you a question about why after after we play this clip, because this isn't the only ex-CIA director or ex-national security advisor or whatever that's come out and said blatantly, oh, yes, we meddle in elections, we coup, we overthrow regimes, and we do it for the greater good, because this isn't the first time, nor will it be the last time. But I want to know why they can do that. So let's go ahead and play the clip, and then we'll discuss.
Have we ever tried to meddle in other countries' elections?
Oh, probably. But it was for the good of the system in order to avoid the communists from taking over. For example, in Europe, in 47, 48, 49, the Greeks and the Italians, we
don't do that now, though. We don't mess around in other people's elections, Joe.
Only for a very good
Can
cause.
you do a Vine video on a former CIA director?
Only for a very good cause in
Okay.
the interests of democracy.
All right, thanks for being here. It's always great to see you.
Always great to see you. Thank you so much. Let us know when you kill about let us know when you kill about another 50,000 people again. Come back and give us an update on it. You know, it's to stop communism, so it's okay, fam. Go ahead, take it away. Nom 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 nom.
Vine video. Do a Vine video on this. It's so funny. The specter of communism, right? Again, we did it to stop the communists from taking over. Oh, the communists were going to take over. So obviously that's the go-to for the neocons to say these communists are taking over. But further, Pasta, why have we seen these videos go out there? These videos get out there, and these ex-CIA directors and these ex-national security advisors like Bolton and these ex-military or government officials just blatantly admit, oh, yes, we do this, blah, blah, blah. Why do you think that is happening more? And why do you think people are surprised?
Well, I mean, it's the normalization of this kind of, behavior. The empire education is set in for a long time. And fam, it's a topic of discussion of sorts amongst dinner tables or political groups. Is the foreign policy that we put forth justified? And they found a way to justify it a lot. I mean, to me, the most craziest thing is I'm not advocating for communism over here, right? But all the talk against communism, all the talk against China. Meanwhile, it's been our government with its 1,000 bases around the world. It's been our government to interfere in election after election after election, like this guy just said over here. You know what I'm saying? It's our government that has pretty much cut its own people's throats by sending all their jobs and killing a middle class and sending their jobs overseas. It's our government. There's never an accountability. The ruling class, because I don't want to call them the elites anymore because there's nothing elite about these assholes. They do have one thing pegged pretty perfectly, and that's us, the American people. They've got us programmed very well. They got a feel of how we're out there, what we're, the sentiment out there is whatnot, how people are feeling right now. And they understand that people are more anti-communist than they are willing to hold their own country responsible. So therefore, this is just a going forth with the plan of normalizing this type of behavior and saying these things. Hey, fam, we did it to fight communism, so we had a reason to do it. So just accept it. And if we don't do this stuff, and this is something that Scott Horton said at Freedom Fest, he says if the United States were to close its bases and everybody come home, it wouldn't be like the Chinese and the Russians filling that void and going into the spot the way a lot of conservatives say that. And when you speak to a lot of conservatives who are not necessarily in politics, they're saying, well, if we don't do what we do around the world, if we don't have the foreign policy, won't China then take over? They have this mentality in their brain, fam. So that's why they can get away with this rhetoric right here. This is nothing more than the normalization of our foreign policy and not being accountable for our actions. There's still a goon on Fox, one of the newer guys, who's putting out specialties, fam, pretty much justifying all the wars and all the foreign policy we've had for the last hundreds of years. And it's a nationalist thing, that thing that we were worried about when the Trump crowd got in there, this nationalism, this kind of okaying of the foreign policy. Because America, great, what we did, we do for truth and liberty. They still believe in institutions. They still believe that our system is the best one. So that's why this works. He's not saying anything that they want. It's anti-communist, so it's okay at all costs.
Right. So, yeah, that's the thing, and as a resident commie of the show, I'm very well aware that a lot of people don't agree with communism, but you don't have to agree with it to understand that the reasoning they're using is completely just invalid. First of all, we're at a point right now where it's not even about that, because China practices a lot of capitalism. Whether the pro-China people want to negate that, I don't care. There's a huge amount of capitalism involved. There has to be, because that's the way most of the world works. Russia is a capitalist country. Sure, they both have very state-controlled entities, far more than the United States. But that doesn't mean that there's no capitalism in it. The fight isn't against communism. The fight is against just these powers that the United States sees as a threat. Now, China, and we're seeing, of course, as we predicted, as it was extremely obvious now, they're going after Taiwan, and Russia, of course. And behind Russia, there's China. So they're attacking China through Russia, and they're attacking Russia through Ukraine. And that's essentially what's happening. But it's not even about communism. It's about the fact that they don't want to lose this unilateral hold they've had on the world, where they could use this reasoning and say, oh, we're doing it to stop the communists. But now the reasoning is to just have the empire, which is basically just a giant military system, continue its operation. And it's not benefiting the people in the United States. Like at one point, people in the United States during World War II were able to create weapons and put people to work and create these industries. That's not happening anymore. So it's not benefiting anybody, this war machine. And so will this reasoning survive? Because I think based on what I've seen from that video, the way it went viral, a lot of people hadn't seen that. And a lot of people were surprised, or at the very least could not believe that they would just blatantly admit this. And I think they can blatantly say this, or at least they could up until this point, because they're counting on people swallowing that reasoning. Like you said, they're counting on people saying, well, we have to do it because, it's for the greater good. And I want the left here to understand here, that greater good mentality is the same mentality that they use when they overthrow regimes, when they meddle in elections abroad, is the same mentality they used for the pandemic. And it's the same mentality that they use for our own elections, because that is what was resounding to me, Pasta. The fact is that so many people can believe, except, oh yes, we meddle in foreign elections. They think these same people that meddle in foreign elections come home and just let our elections be fair and democratic. Yeah. Are you serious? What every single person that thinks that any recent election has been full of democracy and legitimate is entirely, your reasoning is entirely just falls apart with this admission. Because an empire that is willing to go internationally, overthrow governments and coup people and manipulate their elections and admits it, is not going to magically change their tune when it comes to domestics. In fact, it would be much easier because they're right here and they control every single mechanism through the elections. So every single person that has name called us and has said we're conspiracy theorists for talking about the 2020 election, which I'm obviously very careful about talking about it right now because we're on YouTube. But at the same time, guys, if you still think that this empire that blatantly admits that they do these things, that they cause regime change, that they meddle in foreign elections, is going to allow you to take away their power and choose your representatives, you are sorely mistaken. And if you're still voting for a Republican or the Democrat, or thinking that voting will make a difference, as my meme that I put out earlier today, it's just hilarious. The system is laughing at you. These people are laughing at you because we don't have a fair system. And it can't be any more obvious now with the admission of these ghouls they're just saying it. They're flat out telling you, and they're doing it because they're allowing this out in the media because they think that one, they can't stop it anymore. The internet has allowed this information, so their only strategy now is to embrace it and say, well, they have to stand with us because it's for the greater good.
Yeah. Well, there's a few things I want to mention too as well, fam, because I think there's something that you said right there that just was so on point. The fact is that you think these people are going to go over there, meddle in these other elections, implement complete control, complete fascism, pretty much just ignoring the will of the people and their national sovereignty overseas or down below south of the border, and that they're going to come home and be, benevolent of sorts. You know what I'm saying? Like all of a sudden
right.
They're going to behave well. That's just ridiculous. I remember when I got out of the service, fam, and I went to work at TGI Fridays, and there was this one young lady that was there that was working. She was just waiting for her dream job. She'd gone to school for 6 years, and she was just waiting to get this amazing job outside of work. And she was just waiting for it. But however, her work habits were so great. And I remember we were doing like a cleaning session for the restaurant, and everybody could leave if they want to. If you wanted to stay, you could stay. She was one of the person that she was staying behind, and I went to go talk to her. I said, I noticed your work, Jen, on the floor. You're like amazing. Like you go the extra mile. You do all these things here. You're on your way out. Why do you try so hard at this particular job when most of the people in our business, like, Fee, they don't give a shit. Like, they're there just to make money and get the hell out. She goes like, well, because your habits go with you everywhere. People think that you can just like kick it in at any time, whatnot, that you can be a lazy person, not do what's necessary. And then when you want to, kick it in. If you're consistent in anything you do, it goes with you. So if you're somebody who's consistent in cheating and doing shit overseas, that's going to be consistent with your nature at home. When people would say that stuff all the time, oh, Democrats don't cheat the general. They only treat Bernie in the primaries. I just would stop and pause and just say, wow, what a cute creature you are. And you're right, fam. This just took off, right? This 4 years ago, this took off. This tells you something about the audience that Lauren Ingram has, right? She has that same kind of like Sean Hannity, who wears the CIA lapel pin, where they can say this kind of stuff and laugh and what's going on. Do you think that CIA agent would have done the same thing on Tucker's show and laugh, and Tucker doing the same thing? And you know what I'm saying? I mean, that's how far off Laura Ingram and Sean Hannity are when it comes to war and shit like that. That's how far deep down the rabbit hole they are. And finally, the last thing I want to point out to, fam, as well. Everybody has it wrong with communism. And once again, I'm not advocating for communism, but when I meet people, like I was meeting people in this event, and they were talking, oh yeah, you're from the Convo Couch. You and Fee, you guys are leftists. And I would say, well, I identify as a leftist libertarian. Fee is kind of an anarcho-commie of sorts. And they're like, anarchist communist? I don't get that. I'm like, what don't you get? You're see, the thing is that most of your guys' problems is not communism. It's authoritarianism. It's too much centralized power. But if you remove that and you have an anarcho-commie, that means you have somebody who wants to participate in mutual aid, giving, being part of a society, a collective attitude without any leaders. So, they have the people pegged. They have the people programmed right for their narrative, fam. There's half the people in this country are just anti-communist, and they really don't know what is what. But yet they buy into this capitalist system that has screwed them over the table, that has fascist techniques. And how much control do we have? How much centralized power do we have in a capitalist society?
And yeah, and anyism could be taken over by a corrupt person, because we're human beings, and there's going to be people that give into power, because power corrupts, and that's just something that happens. And again, like, I may be an advocate of that, of a certain ideology like communism, but at the same time, I don't expect people to be there yet, because they're not. And I don't believe people are ready for I don't believe most people are ready for that type of anarchist society either. I think some people are. I think some people are doing doing what they can to create that society. But I think the attempt to try to agree and make the entire world fit into one ideology, it doesn't work, because what works in the United States is not going to be what works in China or Russia or any other place, because people are different and people have different wants and needs. And so I think it's important to hear people out. I don't think, my way is the best way and I'm not going to listen to anything anybody else says, because I think people in each country has the sovereign right to decide what the hell they want. So if Cuba wants to be eventually a full-on communist state, that's Cuba's prerogative. You don't have to like it, but you damn well should be an advocate against intervening in another country. Because if you're for freedom for everybody, right? Not just for you. And so that's the inconsistency I don't get with some people who really just vilify everything. And I think also it doesn't help. And I think that is the purpose of these cappuccino commies and these shitlids, because they create that narrative to be true. They become super authoritarian. They promote vaccine mandates. They promote everything that the right fears about that. And so the right then says, oh, these people are all communists. Look at them. I don't want that. I hate communism. And so that's by design. And so that's why we maintain divided. And I just think, it's funny to blame an ideology that doesn't exist in the United States. We live in a capitalist society. So all of our problems are coming not just from the capitalist society, but the fact that we live in an authoritarian society, increasingly authoritarian. And so that do I believe capitalism is a system that eventually always goes in that direction? Yes. But if you don't agree with that, then try to fix it and don't blame your problems on another country. Because really, who's really giving billions of dollars to Ukraine and who's really not doing shit for the American people? That's our own government. And we're the only ones that can really do anything about it. Unless we get invaded, right? So it's just that, yeah, I thought that clip was really important. And I think it's important people heard it. And I'm glad a lot of people who didn't know about it, who were surprised, saw it. I think Pasta, people are waking up. I really do. I just don't know if it's fast enough. So. Well,
I just want to reinforce the major part of your argument is no matter what a country decides for their national sovereignty, they have every right to do so. They have a right to screw up if they want socialism or communism. That's up to them. You know what I'm saying? And we shouldn't be in getting ourselves involved one way or another. And the only reason why we do get involved is not to stop the spread of communism or socialism. We get involved because we have a corporate entity that controls our government, that wants those resources, and a banking system, a global banking system that wants to make sure that these countries are underneath the boot of their freaking monetary system. And that's all it is, really. And at the end of the day, it's gotten to a point now where not only do they not care about everybody back at home, that they're using your kids and your children to go fight these wars, and they're coming back home all messed up. Our country is about to collapse, and it's under a 100% capitalist system. And I hate to have this argument all the time, too, as well, because, once again, a guy who advocates for a mixed economy of sorts, I want a little bit of everything. I want to make sure the things that are really dangerous, which is too much centralized power and overreaching security state, are not involved with our government. You know what I'm saying? I want a small government for real, but you know what I'm saying? I want the government also to be prevalent in certain areas where I think it's necessary. And I want to hopefully try to fix that one day where we can have an honest system. But we don't have an honest system until we have honest elections. But the fact is, when people always come saying like, oh, capitalism, it just, we don't have true capitalism. We have crony capitalism. Well, when does capitalism it has never turned out to be crony capitalism? At the end of the day, in a capitalist system, the entities that control the majority of capital will swallow up the other capital like they're doing right now. And that's why we have a problem.